Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is a Samsung Chromebook 2. It's a relatively thin and light laptop with an 11.6-inch display, weighs about 2.6 pounds, and it runs Google's Chrome operating system. Sells for about $250. In terms of hardware, it's a pretty nice little device. It's got, especially for the price, it's got USB, HDMI, there's a micro SD card slot over here, and that's actually the power adapter. Another USB port, so there's a total of 2 USB ports and a headset jack, and that's about it. You'll notice that it's got stereo speakers on the bottom, but it's a fanless system. There's no ventilation really, and that's because it has a relatively low power Intel Celeron N2840 Bay Trail processor, which balances power consumption with performance. The last thing I guess to note about the design here, and again, this is an inexpensive laptop, it's not necessarily going to have the look and feel of a premium machine, but it's got something that Samsung's been doing with their smartphones lately, which is this sort of fake stitched leather look. It's a plastic lid, but it has this, this sort of textured look, and it's kind of hard to get it across in pictures or video, but when I first saw pictures of this laptop, I thought it looked kind of tacky. In person, it's okay. It's not the most attractive lid, but it's definitely better at resisting fingerprints than some. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on. All you have to do is open the lid. I have developer mode enabled, so I'm just going to skip past that screen. Normally, it would jump right to this, and you can see that within seconds, we're ready to log in. I'm going to do this so you can't see my password. And that's it. So we're online, we're connected to the internet, and we're running Google's Chrome operating system. And it's trying to restore my last session here, so let's just go ahead and skip through some of those things. Now, Chrome OS is an operating system that's sort of designed around the Google Chrome web browser, and the idea is that instead of desktop apps, you run web apps, but you can actually download some applications for offline use. So you can install Angry Birds or Cut the Rope or other relatively simple games. A Chromebook is going to be most useful if you do have an internet connection, but there are some things you can do even without one, including downloading your email for reading offline or editing documents or doing some other things. So over the last couple of years, Chrome has become a much more capable operating system than it once was. But for the most part, this is a machine that's really going to work best if you spend most of your time on the internet. So you can use websites like YouTube and Netflix and watch videos that way, listen to music from Amazon or other web-based services. And let's go ahead and play a video. Turn up the volume a little bit here. And unmute it. This 9 tablet is one of the first tablets to ship with Lollipop, and it's you can see here's the lock screen. You would actually be able to see and adjust the brightness so you can see a little bit better here. Okay, let's go ahead and mute that again, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the viewing angles. It's got a matte display, which is nice because you can see even when it's sort of pointed towards the window, there's a little bit of sort of reflection here, but it's not shiny the way that a glossy screen would be. At the same time, you'll notice that the viewing angles are less than spectacular. Straight ahead, you can see the blue background there, you can see the black sides. When you sort of tilt it back, though, it starts to look a little bit like a photo negative. My hands don't look too bad in the video, but the screen really looks pretty awful. Side viewing angles are better. It's kind of hard to get this across on the camera, but from side to side, it's not really a big problem. But you're going to want to make sure that you don't position this in too awkward an angle, or you're going to have problems looking at video or looking at pictures. Say you're not happy with using this just to run Chrome OS. There is a way to, as I mentioned, enable developer mode, and that lets you do some pretty neat things like open up a terminal window. If I can remember the command for it, Control-Alt-T, type shell, and I've gone ahead and installed Ubuntu on here using something called Crouton. It's a script that'll let you do that. There's also a way that you can even replace Chrome operating system if you wanted to, but I find running them side by side is a little bit easier. Oops. And so here we've got the LXDE desktop environment. I've installed a number of apps, so you can see, among other things, we've got the Firefox web browser, which is always fun to install on a Chromebook. Let's go ahead and restore our last session. The GIMP image editor. And LibreOffice for office editing. So it's a pretty powerful machine that's capable of running all sorts of desktop-style applications. The real problem with doing that, I would say, is, and you can switch back and forth between environments pretty easily here. The real problem with doing that, I would say, is that you are limited to 2 gigs of built-in RAM and 16 gigs of built-in storage. So there's not a lot of space for downloading and installing applications. But if there's just a couple of desktop applications that you need, and most of the time you plan to use web apps or Chrome packaged apps, then you can definitely get some work done using this machine. So that's a quick look. In terms of performance, it offers about Samsung promises up to 9 hours of battery life. In my tests, I'd say maybe 8 to 9, depending on what you're doing. Maybe a little bit less under really sort of CPU-intensive tasks. But it does get pretty good battery life. And so again, it's a $250 laptop that runs Chrome OS, weighs 2.6 pounds, gets around 8 to 9 hours of battery life. A lot to like about it in that respect. If, on the other hand, you're looking for a great display, well, it's a matte screen, but the viewing angles aren't great. If you're looking for a super speedy processor, there are models with Intel Haswell processors that offer slightly better performance. In day-to-day activities, I found that the Celeron N2840 Bay Trail processor is good enough, and it's slightly faster than the processor that's in the Asus C200 and C300 Chromebooks. Those have N2830 instead of N2840, but it's not as fast as the Haswell chip. So it's sort of a mixed bag there. You're doing a little bit of a trade-off for price, performance, battery life, and so forth. But it's really good enough and faster than most of the ARM-based Chromebooks that I've seen so far. Now, I haven't actually tested Samsung's Chromebook 2 with an octa-core Exynos processor, but this is definitely faster than the dual-core version that came out a little while back and sells for a similar price with that starting price of $250. So Chrome OS isn't necessarily the best operating system for everybody, but if you are sold on the idea of Chrome OS, if you're looking for something that's relatively simple, gets automatic updates so it stays up to date, it's relatively secure because applications are sandboxed, I think it's a nice device. It could be a good secondary computer if you have a primary machine that you're using for things like, I don't know, running Quicken or Microsoft Office, or it could be a good primary machine if you just don't have really demanding needs but want something to access Facebook and YouTube and check the news and so forth. So I think Chrome OS is a pretty capable system as long as you don't need specific applications that are only available for, say, a Windows or OS X style device. So anyways, that's a quick look at the Samsung Chromebook 2. You can find more details at Liliputing.com, and thanks to Samsung for loaning me this for a couple of weeks so I could test it. And you can find more details about the performance, more photos, and links to purchase the device if you're interested in doing that at Liliputing.com.